On this episode of The Open Road, we're going 86 Shades of Grey. So inside's actually nicer than I thought it was going to be. It's not marketed to be a really high-end car, but it doesn't feel plasticky at all. It's got some nice surfaces, it's actually really good. The seats are a little bit on the small side, if I'm honest, but I do need to preface that I'm 6'2" and 110 kilos, so it's not really a big person's car. And to further back that point is the steering wheel is actually all the way up and all the way forward, and yet I still want it to be about 2 inches higher and an inch closer. But hey, that's a size person thing, and what are you going to do? But it's a driver's car, so let's drive. In terms of actual bits and pieces that this car has, it's pretty simple. Doesn't have parking sensors, does have a rear view camera. In this one, because it's got the touchscreen display, that touchscreen display, actually pretty good. The sound system, if you're going to be listening to News Talk ZB on the way home, not a problem. If you're like me and you want to sing and you want the music louder than you so you don't hear yourself sing, yeah, this is not going to do that. But it's passable, just. What else? Air conditioning. Air conditioning in this car is fantastic. I like good air conditioning. So yeah, it passes that. Lots of neat little buttons. Unfortunately, it's got these little buttons down the bottom here, above the start-stop button, but they're buttons that you don't use very often. I don't know why they didn't use those buttons for stuff that happens more often. I don't know if you actually heard that noise, but that wasn't the exhaust. What they did was they plumbed through some sound from the engine bay or something, and that's what you hear. It's not the actual exhaust note. Okay, a funny thing just happened. I just shifted from third to fourth and the traction control light came on. Like, who are you kidding? So this engine is from Subaru. It's a Boxer 4 2 litre, about 200 horsepower. Doesn't actually feel like 200 horsepower, but there you go. No, it's not that engine. It's a slightly different one, but more or less. According to Moppy. Moppy actually did write me a script for this car because he was very excited about it, but I left it at home. One thing that Moppy did say was that the engine in this car was probably its biggest letdown, and there are a lot of people doing swaps to the WRX engine, which is easy. And yeah, I can imagine that. I owned a version 5 WRX STI, and the engine in that, man, if we had that power in this car, way, that could be getting dangerous. When you get to the red line, or just before you get to the red line, a little red light comes up, says shift, but if you go anything past that, it's like, no, I'm done, safe word, that's it. You can't push it any harder. And which is actually a bit of a shame, because I feel like there's just a little bit more power there that they aren't quite letting you have, you know? But no, it's okay, the engine's alright. At idle, it's a little bit rattly, and yeah, but I can kind of see where Moppy was coming from. It's not a bad engine, but it's not a great engine. But I mean, it goes alright. It does rev out quite nicely, and in conjunction with this little gearbox, I don't think it's a bad combination. Speaking of the gearbox, it's nice. It feels quite strong. It's nice little short throws. It's very direct. It feels like it's quite strong. Time will tell, but I have high hopes. I think the gearbox is possibly one of the best features of this car. And the thing with the gears is they're quite tall, but they're also quite close together. So you find yourself shifting a lot more than you actually need to. Like, you'll be driving along and be like, oh, the guy in front just tapped his brakes, better shift down, you know? Or you'll be driving along and, oh, there's a slight curvature in the road, better shift down. Or you'll be listening to News Talk ZB and Bill English will say something slightly charismatic, oh, better shift down. And I think it's in that essence, actually, that makes this car feel quite go-kartish. And I don't mean it handles like a go-kart. What I mean is it feels like everybody else is in a car and you're on your own buzz in a little manual go-kart with everybody else. Like, I'm just playing by myself in traffic. It's ridiculous. Like, you know, I'm going through my gears all the time just because it's fun, you know? And the engine's not overly powerful. It doesn't make much difference what you do versus what everyone else is up to. Like, you can be driving along in 6, you know, and then the guy in front of you, he's slowly starting to creep away because the traffic's picking up. So you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go to 5th, and then I'm going to go to 4th, and then I'm going to go to 3rd, I don't know where I'm going to go. And then you're at 100k. So, you know, it's like you can have a lot of fun within the parameters that the law says. You can have a bit more if you go past them, but we won't talk about that. What we will talk about is the handling. The handling on this car is actually bloody good. It's the suspension's not unreasonably firm. Like, the ride itself is completely reasonable. It's a little bit firm, but I mean, it's a sports car. If you bought a sports car and didn't expect firm suspension, you're an idiot. If you bought a sports car and expected firm suspension, it's not as bad as you might have thought. But no, it holds the corners very nicely. One thing though, the pedals, they're a little bit close together for my clown feet, so I'm finding heel towing a little bit of an issue, but I just don't use the brakes. Speaking of which, the brakes are alright. They're not amazing. They don't have a lot of response. Like, you can't feel it connect. You can't feel how linear they are. And if you really stamp on them hard, nothing much happens. I mean, for a little lightweight car, I would expect the brakes to be a bit stabbier. And yeah, I don't know. For me, that's what I would like. It's not what I got. What can you do? See, I didn't even use the brakes there. Just downshifted twice and then have to use the brakes. In fact, I can't actually honestly review these brakes because I haven't used them enough. Man, it's beautiful here. If you hadn't spotted, we're in the Karangahape Gorge today, and I just love this little bit of road, and I thought this car would suit, so here we are. Now, with all of these little windies, and particularly some of these longer sweepers, let me talk to you about the steering. It's electronic, and it feels very, very phoned in. Like, there is no response at all, and that's really, really sad. I think that, I mean, yeah, okay, electronic power steering is a little bit cheaper. I would rather have hydraulic power steering, but I would actually prefer, instead of having electronic power steering, to have no power steering. It's light, the front wheels are skinny, it's such a letdown. It's like, this is supposed to be an enthusiast driver's car, but there's just no response. You can't feel the road. There's no feedback. It's not a two-way conversation. Good steering is a two-way conversation. This is incredibly one-sided. It really upsets me that they went and built such a great little car and left out what, in my opinion, is probably the most important part of it. You know, if the gearbox wasn't quite as good, hey, I'd be okay with that. You know, if the handling wasn't quite as good, hey, I'd be okay with that. You know, if the power was a little bit different, not a problem. But the steering? Really? The steering is like, I mean, it is the connection. It's what you're holding. It's what you have the conversation with you in the road, and they put in really bad steering. Right, let's go. Go car, go car, go car, go car. Yeah, traction control lights still on. I gotta admit, man, this car's, it's got its moments. It's pretty fun. I didn't expect to like this car, if I'm honest. But I get it. I totally get it. If I was... Okay, so our friend Dave actually bought one of these, and he loves it. He absolutely adores it. And I get it. I totally get it. I think that there's a lot of potential that's yet to be unlocked in this car when you buy it. And I think that if you bought one, you'd make it your own. And I think that's entirely reasonable, and I actually think that was anticipated. I think that Toyota made an unfinished product. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I think it's actually very, very clever. I think what they've done is that they've put out a really, really good base package for you to do with as you choose. For example, the wheels, not amazing. The ride height could be a bit cooler. The body styling, I think that they did a pretty good job when they put out the TRD version, but I have seen some amazing Rocket Bunny kits for it. I'll put a picture on the website, you'll love it. But the exhaust note, there is none, you know. Just lots of little bits and pieces like that I think that they expect you are going to do yourself anyway, so they didn't bother. And I think that that's really, really clever. The base is so good that everything that you're going to want to do to it, it's all bolt-on stuff anyway. And we saw some great ones. We saw some cars that looked amazing with all the extra bits and pieces on it, and they'd personalised them. I guess the only one thing that you can't do a lot with is the steering, and that, oh man, that really upsets me. I think that Toyota have done a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I just love seeing them on the road. The camaraderie with this car is amazing. The amount of times, like I drove it around Auckland the day I picked it up just for fun, and the amount of other cars that you see on the road, other 86s, you pull up next to them at the lights and there's, you know, you get the nod. You don't get that in a Commodore, you know? Like, and I think that's really cool. And I think that in a lot of ways, Toyota have reinvigorated the more mature car generation of just reminding them how to have fun. And what's life without a bit of fun? Until next time, team, we'll see you on the open road.